For those ones that will be watching this video, I honestly want to also know your take on this video and what actually made you feel radical. Anyways, a lot of people actually came to air out their opinion, and this video is an educational video for every single person to watch, right? So I love the fact that even some white folks at one point of their life also encounter what you're about to watch. See, every single thing you're passing through, don't think you are the only one as a black person. Honestly, these people are even facing worse. You know when they say it's getting worse, they are also facing their own share of the national cake. But anyways, my name is Sonia. If it's the first time tuning in, subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. And I want to say very big thank you to every single one of you liking my videos, dropping commentaries, and also supporting me with super thanks. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are the best. A lot of people said I talk so fast that I should slow down a bit. Let me know if I have improved in slowing down a bit because update is important. With that being said, let's dive right into this video. I'll be back with commentaries.
Twitter about what radicalized you, and different people are answering what situation or what happened in their lives that radicalized them to start their fight for justice or liberation. And I got to thinking about it because my original answer, and the answer that I've given a lot of times before, is that I was radicalized by the murder of Michael Brown Jr. It happened in Missouri, very close to where my parents lived, and so when the protests were happening, my parents were close by, and I was concerned for them and their safety. And I was also just tired of hearing about another black life taken by the police. But when I take it a bit further, when I think about it, and I thought about it after seeing that question, I was radicalized before that. When I was in third grade, I would have been 8 years old. I was on the school bus heading to school, and a boy on the bus called me the N-word. And in response, he called me the N-word and he spit on me. In response, I kicked him. And as a response to that, a result of that, my parents were called and I was given detention. 8 years old, defending myself for being called the N-word, and I was given detention. And I didn't think about it being radicalized at that point because I was 8 years old, but I think about how I shifted and how I treated the people around me from that point. It was to make sure that anybody that came to my path knew that they were cared for, they loved, and they deserved to be loved and cared for. And so while that doesn't seem as radical as being a social justice worker, or be as radical as being an anti-racism educator, or being as radical as somebody who has been part of protest, it was still a way of radicalizing me for recognizing that I get to decide how to respond to somebody's harm towards me. And that in my response of the harm directed towards me, I get to make the decision about how I don't want that harm to continue going forward. This is a lot of in draft speaking, but I wanted to get this out. That question really kind of sat with me and resonated with me because I'm so frustrated, and I've shared this with you. I'm so frustrated and I'm so angry about everything that's happening right now. It's so much all in one space, all at one time. And I needed to remind myself. And I wanted to remind little Portia why I'm here. And so while I do this, I want to invite you all to think about that. What radicalized you? What radicalized you? What got you into doing what you're doing now? What got you into doing the deconstruction, decolonizing work? What got you there? And how do you remind yourself of that? And as you are thinking about that and reminding yourself as to why you're here and how you got here, make sure you're staying hydrated.
My mom was radicalized by a right-wing extremist cult. Let's talk about it. Back in 2015, my mom became a Trump supporter, and she went balls to the wall really fast. My family is conservative. Historically, I'm a recovering conservative. I went to Catholic school my whole life. But my family was always like Catholic conservative, where we didn't really talk about it, but we all just knew that everyone was Republican. It was that kind of thing. But my mom, as soon as Trump came on the scene, she was all for it. And we went from politics being a private and impolite thing to talk about to she had all kinds of Trump signs in her front yard. She had a lock her up Hillary Clinton shirt, all of it. That was in 2015, 2016. By 2018, She was into all of the Obama conspiracy stuff. Michelle was a trans woman, and the Obamas were in had all kinds of secret operation. I don't even know. I don't even remember the beginning conspiracies. I just remember that everything was the Obamas. It was all anti-Obama, whatever. And then in 2019, it turned into a lot of obsessive about Hillary Clinton and the deep state, and this idea of a global cabal of only Democrats who were harvesting children and were essentially drinking their blood for this thing called adrenochrome, and it was keeping them young forever and whatever. And then it turned into there were tunnels on the moon that were keeping these children for future harvesting. And then it was the Pope was in on it, and then Mother Teresa was in on it. And then it turned into Monsters Inc., the documentary, or was a documentary, or a government psyop to get us used to the idea of harvesting children for power. At one point, there was mention that Guardians of the Galaxy was a documentary as well, and that they were real. There was just a lot of, it went from crazy to batshit really fast. And it ultimately ended up being that she had gotten herself involved with a group called QAnon. QAnon started on 4chan and then jumped onto 8chan. It started as a joke, or kind of as a cosplay thing. And there was this character Q who claimed to have this insane government clearance and had in with Trump, and was sharing secret information with just this one group on this dark web forum. And he would point out things that Trump said and be oh, this is code for this or that or whatever. And it led my mom to believe that she understood things on a level that no one else understood. And so she was always waiting for this big moment, this big reveal. And so every time we would argue, she'd be just wait, you'll see it someday. And a lot of open your eyes, and you have to look, you have to really look, and a lot of the do your own research. And at one point it was clear that she had fully been convinced to break from reality, that there were two versions of kind of every single day. She was living her reality every day, and I was living a different reality. We could argue about just objective things, and she could see it in a way that just simply made no sense. And what really started to become clear was that she had lost any way of recognizing how insane what she was saying sounded. Nothing shocked her anymore. And when that happened, all bets were off. And to me, that was the scariest part, was that her circle of tolerance of what is and isn't crazy, what isn't what's outside the bounds of just logic and reality had completely, there were no bounds. There was, and she would kind of admit this. She would say nothing's impossible anymore. And when we hit that point, that was kind of when I knew that there was probably no coming back from this. Because when you are at the point of, there are no guardrails, there's nothing that you're not willing to explore, because anything is possible. And if there could be tunnels on the moon, why couldn't there be tunnels connecting Hollywood and the Vatican with a high-speed rail sending people? It just got to a point where I realized, why would she ever change? How could I ever convince her to come back to reality when she is willing to accept anything? Anything can be true. So there is no argument I can make to get her to reject those theories in favor of what we, normal society, believe to be true. Does that make sense? And the reason that I think what I went through with that is so important, and the reason that I feel like I need to share this, and I have started sharing this, is because we cannot let this, what happened to my mom and what happened during that process, we cannot let that happen to our country, to our society as a whole. We cannot let our tolerance of acceptance for extremism continue to expand, because every time it expands, it weakens too. So every time we accept that it is okay to have a political rally with pyrotechnics and have Christian band openers and call that a funeral or a memorial service for a man who was objectively racist and misogynistic, and say that that person was an example of godliness and Christianity, we just widened our circle of acceptance, and we weakened the coalition for reason. Every time that we let at one of these ICE raids happen and we underreact, we are widening our circle of acceptance. We are accepting another level of extremism, and we are letting it become normalized. If we do not hold the line on what is okay and what is not okay, we are inadvertently allowing more things inside of the circle. What ended up happening with my mom and I was that I ended up feeling completely unsafe and had to cut off contact. And she's not any better. Years and years have gone by, and she's not any better, and she's not going to get better, because there is a point of no return. And I am very worried that we are coming to that point as a society, that we will reach a point of no return. Once you have accepted insanity to a certain level, it is really, really hard, if not impossible, to pull that circle back in and say, actually, never mind, reel it back in, here's what's normal again. And so my point in making this video and my point in sharing all of this is just to say, if you have people in your life who are showing signs of extremism, please hold the line. Please continue to remind them that extremism is not normal. When you see extremism online, please call it out. When you hear people say things that are completely out of the bounds of normal, that are racist, that are whatever, please call it out. Please be part of the coalition for reason. Please continue to fight back against extremism, because we cannot let it become normalized. We have already let the circle expand so far. Let's not let it expand any further. Let's not let it weaken any further. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Being told in middle school I couldn't date someone because he was black. Having my family members call black people monkeys and the N-word. Being told to believe one thing only to grow up choosing to do my own research just to check and see if it's true, to only find out it's not true. And all I had to do was read it with my own eyes. Church. I grew up small town rural Missouri Baptist, going to church every Sunday, Bible study every week, youth group every week, only to grow up and see those same people politicize Jesus and use the Bible to harm people, which is the complete opposite of the way I was taught. I think the bigger question here is asking yourselves, why do you guys think that's radical at all? Why do you think it's radical for someone to care about other human beings and not want, children, adults, elderly being ripped out of their homes in the middle of the night and zip tied naked, not wanting millions of people to lose food benefits so their children and they can eat, knowing we need a new immigration system, but also accepting that the way this is being done is absolutely illegal and atrocious, and 22 people have died in ICE custody, and hundreds of U.S. citizens have been detained unlawfully. Nobody can look me in the eyes and tell me they still support this administration, and also tell me in the same breath they're a good person, because you're not. There's a reason Republicans are appalled at what's going on. There's a reason Republicans are leaving left and right, because they want nothing to do with this, because Republicans aren't MAGA. So if you are still trying to find and twist into a pretzel a way to support this administration, ask yourself why it's so important to you to celebrate billionaires over everyday working class Americans, farmers. Ask yourself why you care more about supporting party over people, supporting this administration over your neighbor. Ask yourself why you don't care that children are being pulled out of their apartment in the middle of the night naked and zip tied. I want you to ask yourself that. And while you're at it, go ahead and ask Jesus why you don't care either.
I only bring up the contrast of my story because I really feel like God was like, I'm going to open your eyes to all this, and I'm also going to have you go through all this. Not only things that were done to you, but things that you did as a rebellious teenager to show you how contrasted this world is in this country when you are white and you are getting into trouble, which I was. I was a traumatized little rebellious, angry little white girl. You weren't. You were standing up for yourself, defending yourself, and you got put in a juvenile detention for a month.
And then they wasn't trying to expunge my record, but my grandmother, she pushed it. And the crazy thing is, they try to say, oh, no, your record can't be expunged because you dropped out of school. I didn't drop out of school. My grandmother signed me out of school. So how was that my fault? So again, y'all trying to keep me into the system because of things that, one, I didn't do, or I self-defended myself.
They set you up for it. They want you to not graduate. They want you to not.
They set me up so bad. But it's okay because I'm still out here thriving.
Of course, but it hasn't been easy.
Oh, hell no.
And you look at all the different ways that it's like, if you, the way that things can be stacked against you, it's like, well, then it's harder, like for a lot of people out here, it's harder to get a quote unquote real job. So when you give people a record for doing sometimes nothing, we know the rates of wrongful incarceration and wrongful convictions for Black folks are 7 to 8 times higher. But not only is it that people are getting locked up for things they didn't do, even if they get locked up for something they did do, they're getting way worse, more intense punishments than white folks are, right? White folks are getting off. We're getting off for shit left, right, and center. And then you give people a criminal record. Meanwhile, our president has how many felonies?
Child. And the government is the biggest criminals, gangbangers, all of that.
The biggest terrorists.
Biggest.
Yeah, the U.S. government's the biggest terrorist on the planet.
They push it on all the Black people because they have to continue to degrade us to keep themselves in power.
Well, because you guys are the ones that know the truth more than anyone. I mean, indigenous people know the truth. Anyone who's been hunted, Muslim people who have been hunted by the U.S. government, both foreign and domestic, know the evil that the U.S. government is. And so I think that it's not theory. It's not just some abstract conspiracy that you're talking about. It's factual. It's provable if you string it all together. But what I was going to say with it is like, so working in the juvenile injustice system and seeing what happens when you put a label on a child in their teenage years, in their middle school and high school years, and say you're criminal because you got in a fist fight or you had a truancy case.
I'm one of them kids.
You were in there.
I was in the juvenile system for defending myself at a school that I had just moved to. I had moved to Evanston from Norristown, and I got into a fight. First of all, I started school in October. I started late. White girls start picking on me at the school, so I whooped her ass in that cafeteria because she swung on me first. Her mom tried to take me to court and press charges talking about she's scared for her daughter's safety and all this and the third. They was trying to expel me from the school, or they made me sign a waiver to be out of school for 3 months and do a home tutor or whatever. Sent me to the juvenile system because the judge told me I had to apologize. I said, why do I have to apologize to this white girl? she was picking on me. I spoke to the teachers, I spoke to the principals. She continued to pick on me. And then on top of it, I didn't initiate the fight. She did. She swung on me. The counselor was standing right in between us, and she swung across the counselor to try to get me. So I'm sorry that I whooped her ass, but I was defending myself. And my understanding
Were you standing your ground?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's self-defense. So why the fuck I'm getting locked up? Why do I have to apologize and write a note?
Talk about another example of, we talked about metaphors, but examples of like, that's the exact premise. The US government has been doing this to black people here in this country and abroad, and any people who defend their land, defend their people, stand up for themselves are the criminal. But that's what an abuser does though, right?
You know what's crazier? So after they put me in the juvenile system and I got fingerprinted, mind you, I'm only 14.
You were 14.
I got fingerprinted. They registered my hands as
This was
weapons.
Montgomery County?
Yeah. They registered my hands as weapons. Because there was a video, they seen the video of me beating on this girl, and I was stopping her out even after the security guard was trying to pick me up off her. It's cool. After that, I never got into any of the fights, but now I'm in the juvenile system. I'm in the detention center. Cool.
How long did you go there?
I was only in there for a month because I was getting out on good behavior, because I'm not a bad kid. I literally leveled up quickly. I was in there minding my business, didn't bother nobody, nothing. It was time for me to get out. You also knew how to play the game and the system. A lot of kids don't know how to navate that. I'm sitting here telling the kids, a lot of people don't. Y'all in the juvenile detention center acting damn fool, acting more angry. That's gonna keep you in here longer. That's what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do. They want to, because they're making money. These juvenile detention centers are for profit, just like our prisons are for profit. They want to provoke you to stay on probation, to stay in the juvenile detention center, so they can keep making money off you. And when they couldn't keep me in the detention center no more, they had a conversation with my family, try to make it seem as if I'm such a bad kid. My family didn't want me to come home, so they put me in foster care. I was in there for over a year. So that incident, you defending yourself in middle school, put me all the way into foster care from just a regular school fight. 8th grade or 9th grade? So freshman year of high school, you went into a month-long of a juvenile detention, and then they put you into foster care. Yep, for a year. Whole year. Who decided that? DHS or no, the juvenile detention center. They was like, oh, your family doesn't want you to come home, so we're gonna have to send you to placement. They said it was a placement. What juvenile detention was it? Norristown. So they sat there, oh, we're gonna put you in a placement. I'm like, okay, what placement? Next thing you know, I'm going all the way to Bucks County with people I don't know, and it's a foster home. I'm with foster kids. Even when I came home, they said it was all my fault. I should never got into fights, this and the third. I said a fight put me into foster care, and at the end of the day, I did go through a lot of discrimination at this foster care because I'm in Bucks County. I was in the Neshaminy. I'm a black girl in the Neshaminy. I don't even know nobody out here. And then y'all sending me to an alternative school called CSF Bucksmont, and it's a whole bunch of kids from probation, from outside, from all of this other stuff.
Being a Christian in the American South right now is honestly like living through the Twilight Zone, because I'm seeing people around me that are self-proclaimed Christians, and they're having their Christianity absolutely hijacked by MAGA. Because when I stop and I ask myself, where do I see Jesus in America right now? I see Jesus in the people who are comforting the families of people whose loved ones are being stripped away from their job sites and deported to places unknown. I see Jesus in the peaceful protesters who are peacefully protesting the militarization of their cities. I see Jesus in the volunteers serving at the food banks to serve the military who aren't receiving paychecks right now. I see Jesus in the teachers who are comforting their students through endless lockdown drills, and sometimes not drills. Those are the places that I see Jesus right now. And where I don't see Jesus is in any of the actions of this administration. I don't see any of Jesus in the man who is steering the ship right now. The things that he says, none of them resemble anything of God.
Radicalize me? Oh, many things, Buttercup. Oh, very many things. When Black or Indigenous people fight against systems of state-sponsored oppression, we call them extremists or terrorists. When white people do it, we make fucking paintings of them. If someone seems smart about a subject and is speaking passionately about it and seems to know a lot, but you can't actually understand the point they're making, they're not a good communicator. Be suspicious. As a general rule, do not listen to what someone claims another person said. Listen to what that person said, whether it be a single that one bitch or many feminists. Becoming a well-read person will not make you interesting. Becoming a well-rounded person often does. The statements affordable housing and stable home prices are opposites. And finally, I have been thanked for putting on a condom just too many times.
What radicalized me, first and foremost, was listening to Black people, because there's no one on this earth that white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and everything tied to it goes harder against than the most melanated people on the planet. So actually listening and not trying to disprove their lived reality because it is not in alignment with mine. And I would say the contrast is what radicalized me more than anything. It was seeing the fact that oftentimes where my whiteness, the color of my skin, was the only difference between myself and another person, and the way that the other individual and I were treated was drastically different. The outcome of their situation in a system, an institution, was drastically different. And you want some examples? I can give you several. I'm going to stick with this example for now because I think it might be one of, if not the most prominent in terms of the contrast and what really radicalized me to understand a system which offers me and grants me unearned privilege, power, and protection, and at the other end criminalizes, harms, oppresses, and subjugates Black folks and other people of color. When I was in grad school, I was working as a caseworker for an agency that was contracted by the county to work with child welfare and juvenile justice. And let's put justice and even welfare in quotes, because if you're at all aware and awake to these systems, you know you need to hold those two terms loosely. So with that said, it was not only my lived experience and what I experienced in a broken home as a troubled youth and, looking at how the Black and brown families on my caseload were treated, but it was also the contrast of how those families were treated by the same caseworkers next to the white families that were on the same social workers' caseload. And it was understanding that we humanize ourselves. We humanize each other, white folks, right? And we dehumanize Black and brown people. And with that comes drastically different outcomes. So when I was a troubled youth, getting into trouble, running away from home, stealing from my job, I had guidance counselors, writing letters on my behalf, making excuses, saying, she just has been through a lot. I had newly had the mental health diagnosis of bipolar disorder at 16. This is something I was seeing coming up against with so many of the youth I was working with, was these kids were doing a lot of times far less than I was, and they were being thrown into juvenile detention for up to a year, sometimes more. They were being kept in the system because the system is making money off of keeping them there. So I don't want to make this too long. Sure, I lost a lot of people already, but I am happy to share more in depth about that specific example or provide additional examples of the contrast that I'm talking about, of exactly what has radicalized me, is listening to Black folks, listening to queer folks, listening to trans people, listening to people who have experienced more extreme ends of poverty than I have, listening to people from other parts of the world, listening to Muslim people, listening to people who this world makes it incredibly hard to exist for. And understanding that while I face I'm a woman, I grew up low income, grew up in a broken home, I have a severe mental illness, bipolar 1 with psychosis, but I also have some very real levels of unearned privilege, power, and protection that I experience the world with, and that have gotten me out of trouble in ways that I don't deserve. And so with that being said, I'm very interested in talking about how we use this what has radicalized us, quote unquote, and turn that into tangible change, because it's not enough to talk about it here, right? Like, I'm not interested in leaving it online, and we don't need any brownie points. We're not good for naming just the facts and the reality. But I know that we are at a very scary time in this world, definitely in this country, and we can't afford to have less honest conversations. We can only afford to have more. And
people ask me a lot what radicalized me or made me think the way that I do about the government. And honestly, it's plain and simple just reading declassified government documents. There's one, though, that really just completely changed the entirety of the way that I view our government and the way that they view us. And that's Operation Northwood. If you don't know what Operation Northwood was, look it up. So basically, it was a planned false flag attack on U.S. citizens to start a war with Cuba. And in the proposed plan, I think there was plans on painting a jet to make it look like a United States Air Force jet, and then fake shooting it down. Also, there was something else about sinking a boat or something off the coast that was gonna involve civilian casualties, and I think it went as far as an attack in Miami or things in Miami, and that just really hit it home. I mean, and this was backed by all the chiefs of staff at the time. This was signed, ready to go, getting pushed out the door, and the only reason it got stopped was because of Kennedy. And it's stuff like that I mean, we are viewed as not people, but more of a number by the government, and they don't care about our well-being. They don't care about us. Look at what's going on with the SNAP. They don't care. They're still getting paid. So, and it just really shows the priority list of the American people as a whole on their list. They were willing to kill their own citizens to start a war with Cuba. Does that sound familiar? I don't know. But yeah. That's my rant over. That in a nutshell, that's what radicalized me or made me view the government the way that I do.
So in 2008, I voted for McCain. And 2012, voted for Obama. And since then, progressively got more progressive. I was a worship leader. I was a youth pastor. I would evangelize and try to get everyone saved. And I was lovingly against same-sex relationships, etc., etc. What changed me? What radicalized me? Jesus. I started seeing how the state is just how religion is an apparatus of the state. You know, how it's a tool of oppression, how organized religion is so far from the teachings of Jesus and other prophets and wise teachers that have come before, and how people like Dr. King were killed for speaking the truth and pushing back against the powers that be. I see how our priorities as a country that claims to be a Christian nation, which I hope that's a joke if they're still claiming, if someone out there is still claiming that's hilarious. But I just saw how it was just a bunch of bullshit, the hypocrisy, nothing radicalized me. It was being exposed to different life stories, to immigrants, dreamers, to queer people, not buying the rhetoric anymore, like experiencing it firsthand, going into immigrant detention centers. You know, I've already been in jails and prisons, right? Because my dad has landed himself there numerous times. But I never, you know, I stopped taking the media's word on like what immigration is all about, what the problems are, or why people are in same-sex relationships, because they love each other. I started realizing how gross it was that we obsess over people's genitalia, and like from gender reveals all the way to like wanting to check what's under a woman's dress before she enters a stall to make sure she's not trans. Like what? I just kept noticing how there's no real effort to improve Black maternal mortality rates or rape or poverty or anything that GOP legislators and even Democrats sometimes, like, there was no real effort to like alleviate these things from an evidence-based standpoint. As a social worker, I look at evidence-based practice, like what has been proven to be effective in the past. Put your biases aside and do it. And yeah, what radicalized me was love, was throwing away everything that was programmed in me, everything, questioning everything, and letting God reveal herself to me in new ways. You know, just being like a child. Jesus said, gotta come to the Father like a child, right? And I did, and I got to the place of basically starting over and saying, if no one had ever programmed me with these ideas about patriarchy, about gender roles, about sexuality, about anything, plant medicine, right? If no one had ever taught me these things, what would I believe, like discovering them on my own right now? What would my opinions be? That's where I'm at, you know? Because of the teachings of Jesus Christ, I learned compassion and humility, and also learning a lot of New Age, which isn't New Age, but just about consciousness and your ego and your heart space and energy and everything else. And while the world is falling apart and while it seems like everything's on fire, internally, and like me and God, we're good, because like that makes more sense than it ever did, and that feels more true and real than anything else. So what radicalized me was...
Anyways, welcome back, guys, and thank you so much for staying stick till this time. And you guys have seen that in one point or the other, everybody have one or two things to share, and I actually want you that is watching to let me know at what point you feel so radical, at what point you feel so odd, at one point you feel like, this is not for me, I need to definitely leave this environment. I want you to also share your own story in the comment section. And if you want us to share your story one-on-one with your videos, you can actually do a video and tag us so that the world can also hear your story. This is when we have to sing this. This is my story. This is my song. Hey, I'm praising my Savior. Honestly, like I said from the beginning of this video, even some of these white folks have their own national share. But the thing is, I really do not care about what they have, what they had to go through, or what they don't have to go through. Except for those ones that are number 6 is correct. Because I feel like some of them can just jump into this trend and just say whatsoever they want to say without even having to pass through anything. The only people I trust is my Black people. That's the only people I know that whenever they say something, I can literally look at it and be like, yeah, this thing they're saying is absolutely correct, right? So yeah, a lot of comments actually came up as well, where a lot of people were also sharing their experience, and in 99% of the experience, they had this feeling from these white folks. Like, white folks actually give them a certain experience that can never be forgettable. Some starting from the elementary school, university days, and so on and so forth. And that's why I keep telling people, you don't actually know what some of these black people are going through, except you get to experience it. One woman also said it in one of her videos. She said initially she was thinking that when they're talking about racism, she'll be like, excuse me, please, people should just keep quiet. People don't understand. It's even better for me to go and experience racism. Until she actually traveled from Africa to UK, and then she actually experienced racism in full form, and that was when it was done on her that, oh my god, this thing that these people are literally passing through is not what anybody should really do. And that is why in all my videos I always send hugs to my Black Americans people. I just tell you, just be strong, just know how to manage your community, know how to manage the things that you're supposed to manage. Don't let anybody talk down on you. If you get to that point whereby you feel like a lot of things is starting to go abstract, start filming. Give us videos so that we can take them viral for you. That is our job. Our job is to make them go viral. Our job is to show them that you cannot just play with a black person and just go scot-free just like that. We don't bargain that here at all, right? Anyways, let me know what you think about this video. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you haven't subscribe, like this video, drop me a comment, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. And yes, guys, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye. I'll see you guys in my next one. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, subscribing. You guys are the best, and I love you guys from the depth of my heart. Anyways, bye for now. I love you guys. Mwah. Hey, baby.